Okay, hey, welcome to this quick start tutorial on Video L, or practicing with masking in Sony Vegas. I'm going to do two tutorials on this, a part one and a part two. And what we're going to do is in this first part is I'm going to show you how you can put a mask on a specific area. Like in my example video, you can watch this on your own. I apply it just to the AREA, the area part, and I do a little glow effect. Or during the video itself, I apply it just around my face and I put a little blur effect on it. And when you're doing it, you can put any effect you want. It doesn't have to be a blur effect. So let's do that part first. That's kind of the easier part. So I'm going to open up my Vegas, and I'm going to need to get the files to start with. So I just want to remind you, the files you can download from YouTube, or you can get them on the N drive. That's a lot easier. They're inside the video folder, and then there's another folder called Raw Files, Miscellaneous Assignments. So that file, you can find it right in there, and it'll be called Mask 2 Raw. So you're going to grab that file, copy it into your H drive, and then you can drag it down. So once you have your file, then I'm going to turn off, I'm going to do the ignore event grouping. That way I can pull my audio out, delete it, I don't really need it. And then I want to split this clip in half. Oh, there's a boo. Where's the halfway point? There it is. There's that black screen. So press S to split the clip. And now I can take that clip, where that's part two, I'll use that later. So here's my main clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and add a new track and paste it up into it. So whenever you're doing masking, you always, as far as I can think of, you're always going to have at least two tracks, because you're going to want to apply the mask to the top track to allow you to block part of it or see part of it through, and then the bottom track you can do effects or something. Now, boo, what are you growling about? Let me pause this. Okay, I'm back. So I made my two tracks, right, and we duplicated it. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to group these two clips. So I use my shift key to select them both, and then I press G in the keyboard. That groups them, and that way they'll stay together and I won't mess this thing up accidentally. So to do a mask, you just go into the event pan crop. Boom. I'm going to undock that so you can see it better. Okay, there we go. And down here in the bottom of the timeline, it says position is normally, where you do your zooms. If you click on mask, it'll switch over. Now I'm going to zoom up on it with my mouse, scroll, and then I'm going to roll over a little bit. And I think in the beginning of the video I just kind of messing around, but about here is where I want to do the mask. I'm pretty stable. So I'm going to zoom up even more. And a little trick, if it's off-centered a little bit, if you press your keyboard, like say I'm like this, if you hold the space bar on your keyboard, then you can move the video around and center it up however you want it. So let's say I want it about there. Okay, now to do the mask, you use this tool right here, this anchor creation tool. And that's going to allow you to drop points, and they're going to connect the points automatically. And the more points you drop, the finer tune you can make it. And I'm just going to do a rough one for now. Don't worry about getting too close to the head, because in case I move around a little bit, that way I'll stay blurry. And then when you get towards the end, you just connect that last dot, boom, and now it's all selected. Now the mask is drawn it. Now a nice little trick I'm going to show you. Right now my mask is somewhat angular, right, because it's going dot to dot and it's all straight lines. If you press the split tangent tool right here, and you come over to one segment and you press it, it'll smooth that one segment out. It'll add a point there. Now it makes like a curve point. Now if you click on an actual point here, like that, so I'm just selecting that one point and you press it, it's going to apply that around to the whole area, or it's supposed to. Maybe once you do it on one, you're screwed. Let me Control Z that. What I want to do is instantly apply curve points around the whole picture. So I think you have to just do it before you do anything else. Yeah, now I've highlighted the entire mask, and then I press once, and now it's smoothed all of them out simultaneously. So based on that little experience, if you drop one point, then you may not be able to do them all at once. So now I've kind of smoothed my mask out. It's nice. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a feather. So the feather is like how the effect's going to be applied. Right now it's very like, on this side there's no mask, on this side there isn't. It's a real harsh line. So if I do a feather, it's going to look a little bit better. You can do a feather on the inside, a feather on the outside of the mask, or both, in and out. So that's a little bit better, both. And now I can decide the percentage of my feather. And you just eyeball that, whatever you think is going to look better. You can't probably see it on my screen so much, but when you do it, so whatever, I'm just going to choose 17. So I put a nice little feather on it. I smoothed it out. And notice this, you have a choice of either positive or negative. Now what's happening is, let's look at this mask. The darkened part around the mask, that part is going to be transparent. So that means I'm going to be able to see through the track, this top track, to whatever is below in this area. But except for the face part will stay the same. If you want to flip that, you could go mode negative. And then what would happen is the top part would stay, whatever you see, and the part inside the mask you'd be able to see through to the bottom layer. So for most things you can really go either way and get the results. You just have to keep track of it in your mind. I think probably the easy way to think of it is keeping it positive when you're first starting out and knowing that this part here is going to be transparent. So let me just show you an example. So I'm going to, just as an example, I'm going to get a totally different track to use. I've got some digital brain track. There it is. So I'm going to add an entirely different track down here, and just temporarily, just to show you this, because right now it's hard to see the mask because I've got two of the identical clips. I'm going to turn this clip off, mute it, and now you can see what's happened. So around the mask that I drew, the top track is dominating, my face is. But around all the other area, which has become transparent, you can see through it. Now watch what would happen if you reverse that. It's kind of cool. If I said mode positive, why don't you guess what do you think is going to happen before I do it? I go negative, and now watch. Now what happens is the part on the top this part becomes solid, and the part inside the mask is now transparent, so whatever is underneath it is going to play. So in this case I become like a matrix face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that blur effect. I'm going to bring it back to normal instead of being negative mode, positive. And now I'm going to, so this part here is transparent. So what if I want to blur the face out? That means I want to put a blur effect on the top track. And that means my face will be blurry, but everything else, this part here will be transparent, so it'll come down to the bottom track, which is clear. So I'm going to go here to the special effects, Sony, Gaussian blur, and you could do anything. You could make the person's face be pixelated or newsprint, or it could be mirrored or whatever you want. But for this example, I'm just going to use a blur effect, and I'm going to really increase that blur out. And you could play around. You could also make it red or whatever. So whatever, pretty good blur there. And you could chain these effects too. You could add a blur, and you could add something else if you want to play around with that. But now I've got a blur on it, and I applied it to the top track. I blurred my face out. I've got my mask around it, and I'm not moving very much, so this mask is working pretty well. Now if I was moving more, one thing you can consider you could do with a clip is go in the event band crop, and what you might have to do is do more like what they call rotoscoping, which is if I'm moving around the screen, you'd have to go using keyframes and change the location of this mask so it corresponds with the movement. So you could draw new masks all around. And you can also draw more than one mask on a screen, so I could also have a separate area be masked as well at the same time. So you could do some cool effects with that. One thing that comes to my mind with you could use masks is you could have certain objects in your background like glowing or doing something a little special, and you could do that, especially if the object's not moving. You can do that pretty easily with the mask. So that's a quick little tutorial. You could have some fun with it. You could just do a simple thing like I did, or you could do something with a little more pizzazz to it, however you want. But that's the first part of masking, so go ahead and do that. And then lastly, don't forget to add a track up to the top and insert your name if you would. Insert text media. So just have your name appear in the lower corner of the video. And that would be sweet. Maybe make it a little smaller or however you want to do that. And have fun with it and come back for part 2. In part 2 we're going to handle dealing with putting words in front of and behind certain areas.